Hello students, today we are going to learn about forest and wildlife resources in India for class 10th in social sciences. Before we proceed further, let us see how and where this topic is placed in class 10 social sciences. You may have realized that geography is an important component of social sciences at class 10th, wherein the theme is contemporary India, and there are 6 units wherein forest and wildlife resources is an important unit. Today, we will be learning about some aspects related to this unit. Students, when you look at the title of the chapter, there are 4 keywords, namely forest, wildlife, resources and India. In this session, we will be revisiting these concepts in the light of our country. This will facilitate us in our forthcoming deliberations on this chapter. Before we move further, it becomes pertinent to know the forward and backward linkages of the particular theme. I may like to draw your attention on the visual displayed on the screen. The visual represent major and minor concepts are presented with the help of concept map. If you examine the visual more explicitly, then you will see that there are several concepts and sub-concepts interrelated with each other. Now, for our convenience to understand, let us divide the visual into 2 parts by drawing a rough diagonal from northwest to southeast direction. Thereafter, towards the left hand side, you will see that there are major concepts like natural vegetation and wildlife, factors affecting natural vegetation, types of natural vegetation and wildlife and its distribution pattern in India. This you must have learned in your earlier classes, and this will facilitate you in understanding this particular lesson. Then, I may like to draw your attention towards the right hand side. You will notice that there are certain concepts related to biodiversity, threats to wildlife and forest, and concepts related to conservation and forest and wildlife. The closer look at the visual will make you understand the relationship of concepts and sub-concepts in better way. This also helps in seeking bird's eye view of the entire unit with forward and backward linkages. In case you are not familiar with the backward linkages, then you may go revisit these concepts for better understanding. Students, you may have several questions in your mind that why you have to learn this topic, how you can learn this chapter better, how the concepts will help you in further learning, and what do you learn. In order to answer these questions, NCERT has developed a document called Learning Outcomes at Secondary Stage. This document lists out learning outcomes in all subjects at secondary stage along with social sciences. The document is also available at the link given on the slide. For the information of our students and teachers, learning outcomes are basically end results of learning. It focuses and lists out several competencies to be developed among students while learning social sciences. You may have a glance on your screen and you will notice that there are list of 12 umbrella learning outcomes in social sciences at class 10th level. It includes development of competencies like recognize and retrieve facts, compare and contrast several interpretation skills, and development of problem solving and critical thinking skills. Let us come back to our today's topic, and now we will try to revisit some of the important concepts related with the topic that may include resource, flora, forest and natural vegetation, habitat, biodiversity, ecological system and conservation. Now, coming back to the concept of resource, we will try to analyze how forest and wildlife are resources, considering the concept of resource. Let us check and verify the points one after the other. Forests are available in the environment. They satisfy our several needs. Will you like to list out some of their uses and importance of these forest and wildlife resources? Yes, they are economically viable to use, they are technologically accessible and culturally accepted, but with several restrictions. Thus, we can conclude that Forest and wildlife are important resources. When we discuss about resources, it becomes equally important to know the concept of conservation. Conservation is nothing but careful preservation and protection of something. It is planned management of natural resources to protect from exploitation and from destruction. We know that some of the resources are non-renewable, so we need to conserve them. How about forest and wildlife resources? Just think on this and later we will have discussion on this aspect. In your previous sessions, you have studied about classification of resources. Now let us see where do forest and wildlife fall as far as category of resources is concerned. Have a look at your screen and try to answer. We may agree that forest is a biotic, renewable and a national resource. If someone disagrees, let us build and share our arguments. Moving further, you can see that there are several sentences written on the screen. Let us read one after the other. Over 81,000 species of fauna and 47,000 species of flora are found in the country so far. Second sentence, the dimensions of deforestation in India are staggering. The forest cover in the country is estimated at 78.29 million hectares. Sentence number 3, the following major type of natural vegetation may be identified in our country: tropical evergreen forest, tropical deciduous forest and several other type of forest in our country. Have you noticed that there are 3 terms used in these sentences: flora, forest and natural vegetation? Is there any difference or it is the same? Let us try to draw distinction among these 3 terms. When it refers to flora, it means variety of plant species of a particular geographical area or a period of time. When it comes to forest, the word forest is derived from the old French word forêt, denoting forest, meaning vast expanse covered by trees. Continuous and extensive area covered with trees which grows closer together or sometimes scattered with their foliage shading the ground. Forest, they may be natural or man-made. When it comes to natural vegetation, it is a vegetation cover that has grown naturally without human intervention for long time, that includes forest, grasslands and shrubs. Now let us check. There is a test items for self-assessment. This symbolizes relationship between forest and natural vegetation. You need to test yourself and give reasons for your argument. Another important concept is biodiversity. You can see in the concept map that it is a combination of 2 words, bio and diversity, wherein bio refers to living organisms and includes plants, animals and microorganisms. Diversity refers to variation, differences in these living organisms. Thus, biodiversity is a variation in the living organisms in a given space. These living organisms are interdependent on each other and have multiple networking. It has diverse form and function. Our country is immensely rich in biodiversity. Another important concept will appear in this chapter is habitat. You must have learned this concept in science in your earlier classes. Habitat is a natural home of plants and animals. You can see that animals may have habitat in tropical rainforest, they may have habitat in tundra region or still others may have habitat in desert region. You may see these 2 pictures on your screen. What do you see? You may observe that there are aquatic flowering plant in one picture and corals and fishes in the other picture. These organisms have their natural home, which is called as habitat. In this chapter, you will also learn about how there is a loss of habitat of wild animals due to deforestation. Another important concept is biosphere. You know that there are three main realms of the earth. This you have studied in your earlier classes. Will you like to name them? Yes, you are correct. These are lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. And what about biosphere? Biosphere is a narrow zone of contact of land, water and air which supports life. This you can see in Venn diagram provided on your screen. Then there are two more concepts which will appear again and again in this topic. They are ecology and ecological system. Let us make threadbare distinction between the two. Ecology is the study of relationship of living organism with the environment, whereas for ecological system, let us look at the image on your screen. What do you notice? Are there any living organisms? Yes, have a closer look. Are there any abiotic component visible in the picture? Are these components independent of each other and are autonomous, or they depend on each other? How they are related to each other? So what have we noticed? There are living organisms, there are components of abiotic environment and they are interdependent on each other. Now let us look at the concept. So ecological system means integrating system comprising all living organisms and their environment in which they are linked by flow of energy and material. Just note the highlighted words on your screen. They show how interdependence is inherent to ecological system. Now let us have a small activity. In this you are supposed to read the passage and understand the set of given maps. So based on this passage and given set of maps, you are supposed to provide your answers. So let's read the passage. Our country is one of the 12 mega biodiversity countries of the world. With about 47,000 plant species, India occupies 10th place in the world and 4th in Asia in plant diversity. There are around 15,000 flowering plants in India, which accounts for 6% in the world's total number of flowering plants. The country has many non-flowering plants such as ferns, algae and fungi. India has about 90,000 species of animals as well as rich variety of fish in its fresh and marine waters. There are 2546 species of fish which accounts for 12% of the world's stock. The country has about 2000 species of birds. They constitute 13% of the world's total. It also shares between 5 to 8% of the world amphibians, reptiles and mammals. Then on your screen you may see two maps. The first one is related to the relief features of India and the second one is related to the distribution of natural vegetation in India. So what you are supposed to do, you need to reread this passage, closely have a look on these two maps, the given two maps, relief map and the natural vegetation map of India, and based on these two you are supposed to provide your answer. So there are 4 questions listed for your home assignment. First one, so you need to listen very carefully, note it down and based on these two maps along with your passage, you have to come out with your findings, you have to come out with your arguments. The first question goes like this: reflect on characteristics of biodiversity in India. So you are supposed to provide your reflections on the characteristics of biodiversity in India. Second question, what according to you are possible reasons for vivid biodiversity in India? I will repeat the second question. What according to you are possible reasons for vivid biodiversity in India? Question number third, large size of biodiversity is not free from threats. Question number 4. Predict possible threats to biodiversity of our country. So, in our next session, we will be discussing about vanishing forests and wildlife in India. We will be also discussing about threat to forest, threat to wildlife, and we will also have discussion on conservation strategies for conservation of forest resources in India and conservation of wildlife resources in India. So, I hope the concepts related to resource, conservation, vegetation, flora, fauna, ecological system, ecology, which we have discussed today must be clear to you. And again I may like to repeat the way I have said in the beginning, through concept map where we have provided backward and forward linkages. Suppose you are not clear with some of the concepts, it is advised to revisit those concepts provided in your earlier classes. So, with that we would like to conclude our today's session. Thank you very much.